I tried all kinds of different workout programs and diets over the last 15 years, thinking it was gonna get me in the shape that I always wanted, but then I finally unlocked the secret to getting the physique that I wanted, and over the last 4 years, I put on about 25 pounds of muscle in my mid-30s. So I'm going to share with you the 9 mistakes that I made over the you know what, actually, let's make it 10. I'll give you a bonus in there. 10 mistakes that I made that kept me small that hopefully you can avoid, and that will help you get the physique that you want way sooner. Number 1 is program hopping. I've heard it said from a lot of people, oh, you gotta shock the muscles, you gotta change up what you're doing every 4 to 6 weeks in order to grow. And that is the worst thing I can advise you to do. I remember back before YouTube was even really a thing, when I was a teenager and even into my early adulthood, seeing these men's health articles of like, you know, do this program to look like Thor, Chris Hemsworth in the original one. And I remember one in particular, it was like, add 40 pounds to your bench press in 6 weeks. And that did help me a lot, probably because I was being consistent. But if you're always changing what you're doing, it's really hard to actually gauge your progress, because you go from doing a few weeks of bench press to now doing a few weeks of dumbbell press because you saw your favorite influencer doing it, or doing a few weeks of this now. You got to stay on one program for at least a few months so you can see your progress and see if you're actually doing better. And number 2 goes right along with that, and that is tracking your progress. I used to just go to the gym and do whatever I felt like, you know, typically always bench press, always doing those upper body things, doing chest, doing abs, not really doing back. Maybe sometimes I do some pull-ups or something like that, but not really knowing what I was doing, just random stuff as I went. If you're not tracking what you're doing, then it's really hard to progress. So you get a program that you're gonna stick with and then track it. I have on my phone pretty much all the different exercises I do on various machines. That way when I go to a certain gym, if I don't have the same thing that I typically do, I can at least be like, okay, last time I did this type of machine, these were the numbers I did. I'm gonna try to hit that or at least a little better. Progressive overload is what is gonna help you build muscle and get the physique you want over time. And making sure that you're not going overboard with the amount of sets you're doing, because I used to go in, do a chest day, I'd probably do like 20 sets worth of chest because I wanted to do everything. I had to do flat bench, I had to do incline bench, I had to do decline bench, I do dips, I do cable flies, I do dumbbell flies. Every single chest exercise you can think of, I was trying to do because that's what builds a big chest. But now, as there's more research to show, you don't want to go overboard, you don't want to overtrain, because that's not going to help you. So I typically shoot for between 10 to 20 sets per week per major muscle group. So for chest, 10 to 20 sets, it usually ends up being around 15 or 16. It depends on where I am in my program. If I'm starting at the beginning, it's usually fewer sets, and then I end up with more sets towards the end of that progression before I deload and start over again. So pick your exercises, make sure you're consistent with that program for whatever amount of time you're doing, and track your progress in those same lifts over time so you can make sure you're improving. And number 3 is protein intake. I used to think, you know, as soon as I work out, I just need to go drink a big protein shake and I'm good to go. You know, it's like 2 scoops, get 50 grams of protein. Well, there's not really an anabolic window that's so close to the end of your workout that you have to get that shake in as soon as you get done. You even have it at the gym with you. You just need to be eating consistently throughout the day, and getting enough protein is really important. So for me, I typically try to eat 4 to 5 times a day between meals and snacks, and getting anywhere from 30 to 50 grams of protein in all those, because I want to shoot for 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. So for me, that's around 185. I usually just shoot for around 200. Makes it simple, and, you know, 40, 40, 40 on most meals. And it's not necessarily that. I might have 50 for breakfast and then a snack that's 30 and then 40 later. But rounding it out, it ends up being pretty close to that at the end of the day. But on the low end, I shoot for at least 0.8 grams per pound of body weight, and on the high end, 1 gram. You really don't need to go above that unless you're just trying to eat more volume of food because you're really hungry. Higher volume of protein, you can eat more as compared to a higher volume of fat. And that really made a huge difference for me, because my diet typically consisted of getting up in the morning, eating some cereal, going to work, maybe having a granola bar, and then I'd pack a sandwich, peanut butter and jelly, some chips, hardly any substantial protein throughout the day. And then at night, who knows, macaroni, chicken nuggets, that type of thing. Maybe I was getting 60 to 70 grams of protein a day. Not a whole lot. And when I made sure that I was eating enough protein, I really started to notice a big difference in my muscle building capabilities. Number 4 is skipping leg day. And I know some of y'all are doing this. I used to do it too. I didn't care about my legs. I'd been told in the past, you know, all you gotta do is run, and that's all you need for your legs. You're not gonna build muscle running, at least not a noticeable amount. And back in mid 2020, I started doing a program where it was legs push pull twice a week. And I did that for like 2 years straight. And that's what I'm talking about with being consistent with programming. I did the same exercises for nearly 2 years, except if I had some injuries here and there, I would substitute something out that didn't maybe stress my lower back. But staying consistent with that over time, I can see the progression of going from squatting 115 to now doing over 300 pounds. And my legs blew up from 2020 to 2021, and they keep getting bigger. So I've also seen that when you work your legs, that boosts your body's natural testosterone too, because those are some big muscles in your legs and you're working that. And I also noticed my bench press started going up as well too when I started doing legs, which seems strange to me, but it worked. Number 5 is caloric intake. Now that's for whether you're cutting or bulking, or if you're just trying to maintain your same relative size. You can't necessarily put on muscle at the same weight forever. If you have a lot of fat to lose, you can kind of recomp and lose some fat, gain some muscle while staying around the same weight. But once you get to the leanness you want, you have to start gaining weight in order to put on more muscle. You can't just stay the same leanness and get more muscle, because, well, then you have to lose fat in that case to trade off and be the same weight. So don't be afraid to up your calories. And what I did the first couple of years when I was really training hard was I started around 2,100 calories a day, and I would add 100 calories a day every 3 to 4 months. So then I went up to 2,200 calories a day for a few months, and then up to 2,300 calories. And my weight slowly went up over time. So I wasn't necessarily just tracking to make sure I was gaining weight, but I would just bump it up because I know, okay, now I'm eating a little bit more, because it doesn't take a whole lot of extra calories to bulk. If you start eating 500 calories a day more than you normally do, then you're gonna gain a lot of fat quickly. You have to cut a lot of that off. But even if you do 250 calories a day, that's more than you need. So those slow changes, and if you don't like the extra fat you're getting after 4 or 5 months of that, you can easily cut for like 2 weeks and lose the extra, because you're not bulking on it going crazy. So if you do bulk, make sure you have an end goal in mind. So you're not just gaining 30 pounds and like 70% of it's fat, and you gotta do a lot of cutting. I've got videos on techniques for bulking to gain a lot of muscle without gaining all the extra fat. So be sure to check that out if you're interested. Number 6, fasting was killing my gains. I probably did 2 years? I think it was probably a good 2 years that I was fasting like every single day. And from the research, fasting can be beneficial, but typically you don't want to do it every single day. But I did at least a 16-hour fast every day, and that went up to 18, that went up to 20, and then it got to where almost the 1 meal a day thing. And when it comes to building muscle, fasting is not ideal. If you like where you are and you like eating bigger meals, then yeah, fasting is a good way to maintain your body weight, maintain what strength you have, and you can eat pretty much whatever you want. But what I found happened to me a lot was I ended up eating a bunch of junk food, because I'm like, oh, I've got all these calories at the end of the day, let's eat a pizza. And it's not necessarily that healthy for you. Not saying everyone does that, you can definitely eat healthy, but I made a lot more progress when I get up in the morning, eat some protein. You get that muscle protein synthesis started, and then a few hours later, eat the next meal, then the next one, and the next one. And that steady amount of protein all throughout the day of getting my 200 grams of protein versus all that within a 4-hour window, it just didn't work that well for me. You know, let me know in the comments if that works for you and you've been able to build a muscular physique while fasting. I'm not saying losing fat, be able to see your muscle, but going from smaller you to 20-pound bigger version of you at the same leanness while fasting. For me, it didn't work well. Got a video on the dark side of fasting as well. You can check that out for more details on how it can be bad for you. And that leads us into number 7, which is fad diets. Say you are fatter than you like and you want to get rid of that, so what do? You do paleo or carnivore or keto or Atkins or Weight Watchers or whatever it is. The problem with all of those diets, not in and of themselves, but people look at the diet as in a temporary thing. If a certain way of eating and lifestyle got you to being overweight, doing a temporary fix isn't gonna fix the problem. Almost everyone regains the weight back, and a lot of times even more than when they started, because it messes with your mind. What you have to do is make sustainable changes, change the way you eat, and that's what I did a lot with The protein intake that we talked about earlier, the caloric intake, figuring out what you need. I tried different diets to help do that, like maybe not eating any carbs, because I thought that's what you have to do to lose weight. That's what you see in magazines and stuff back in the day. No, that's not the truth. It's just calories in, calories out. So you figure out which foods are gonna help me to maintain this caloric amount that I need, whether that's to maintain my weight or to cut if I'm losing fat. And then what happens when you get to the weight you want or the leanness, you add more food back in, but you keep eating those same types of foods. And I have tons of videos on what I eat in a day to maintain my physique or to build it up, fast food, restaurant options that are lower in calorie, higher in protein, because I travel a lot, so knowing what are my go-to things that are gonna help me to get that amount of protein I need in a day without having a huge caloric surplus. So you have to figure out a lifestyle change of what works for you and then stick with that, and that's the diet that's gonna work. So if carnivore works for you and you enjoy it and you can do that forever, it's not just a temporary diet, then thing with keto or whatever else, I just don't like cutting out whole food groups. I like eating vegetables, I like eating carbs, I like eating fats, all that stuff. I just try to do it in moderation, and knowing which things have more calories than others is gonna help you to be able to do that. Number 8 is ego lifting. What happens when you ego lift? You tend to get hurt, especially if you do it a lot, and then when you get hurt, what happens? Well, you just quit working out a lot of times because it's like, oh, I can't do what I wanna do, so I'm just gonna do nothing. If you have that all or nothing mentality, then it's really gonna hurt you when it comes to making progress. And that's what I did a lot throughout those 15 years leading up to when I started making some serious gains. And I would see a movie with some action star, I'm like, oh, I wanna look like that. Look up the Men's Health magazine that comes out along with the movie release and be like, oh, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna go at it hard, and I'm pushing as hard as I can, lifting more weight than I can, bad technique, and then what happens? End up getting hurt and then just don't do anything. Whereas I hurt my back pretty bad about 6 weeks ago, prepping for this next powerlifting meet I'm gonna do. I'm like, okay, my back hurts really bad, but I don't wanna quit. It's just my lower back. So what can I do? I'm not gonna squat, I'm not gonna deadlift, which really stinks because those are the things I was training for, and I didn't do them for about a month. But I still went to the gym. I did leg extensions, seated leg curls, anything I could do that didn't put a lot of pressure on my lower back. I did a bunch of chest supported row machines. I did pull-ups and things like that that didn't stress my lower back. And now I've slowly been working back into it, and I'm up to over 300 pounds on my squat again. Working up on the deadlift slowly so I don't pull anything. But you can work around injuries. Don't use it as an excuse to quit, because if you quit, then you're just gonna regress. It's a lot easier to maintain what you've already done so far than just completely quit, because it only takes about 1/3 of the effort to maintain what you built up to, as opposed to how much work it took to get to the point where you are with the amount of muscle that you have. And number 9 is simply consistency. That sounds easy, but that's the main reason why over those 15 years I didn't make progress, because I'd work out for a month or two at a time and then something comes up, ego lifting, I hurt myself, and then I quit working out for a while, and then 6 months later, oh, I'm gonna hit it again. I work out for a month or two, and then maybe a baby's born, and then just completely quit. You can adapt and do things differently. Yeah, it's good to have a program that you're following, but also know that I can adapt and I'll be consistent with this new thing. I'm not gonna just completely quit and do nothing, because even if you had what might be considered a subpar workout program or routine, staying consistent with that for years at a time, consistent with your diet, consistent with your training, you'll get better results than I did over those 15 years of on and off pushing really hard and then doing nothing. Because then you just stagnate, then you build back up to where you were, and then you lose it, and then the cycle continues on, and you never really make real progress with what you wanted to achieve. And number 10, the bonus tip, is take lots of supplements. No, I'm just kidding. I never really did take any supplements in all that time leading up to it, except for protein powder. I always took that. We'd make the protein shakes thinking that was the magic way to build muscle, but it didn't really do that, because I wasn't getting enough protein throughout the entire day consistently to really build that muscle anyways. But the things I do take now every day, creatine, pre-workouts when I do work out, and then protein powders I use. In recipes I have a lot on the channel that use protein powders for different things to boost the protein content with lower calories in order to hit those protein goals without going crazy on the calories, whether that's French toast, pancakes, waffles, all kinds of different meals. A lot of things I eat for breakfast most often because then I'll have different stuff throughout the day. And I also do take GO2 max at times when I do cardio, when I want to try to push harder, and it does help me with that, but it's not something I take all the time. Creatine's the time-tested thing that's really going to help you in building muscle over time. But those are the 10 mistakes I made that kept me small, that if I had changed, especially when I was in my 20s, I probably would have been able to build even more muscle because my joints wouldn't hurt as much, more testosterone going through my body, all those things from growing as a young guy. But the good news is I'm in my mid-30s and was able to do this. So you try hard, you have consistency, you really stick to something, and you'll be able to get good results as well. So if you have any questions, post them down in the comments and I'll try to help you out where I can there. At Camber Fitness on Instagram is where I post a lot of my lifts and things that I'm doing, life updates. So go check that out as well, and I'll see y'all in the next one.